Okay, so let's make a tier list of every plant production card. So it says plant production card, but it's not specific to just plants that actually increase your plant production, but to all cards that mostly produce plants. So I have like Arctic algae, and I have greenhouses, which, all they're gonna do is give you plants anyway, so I included them. I did not include any cards that gave you plant as a minor side effect of the card, so like import hydrogen gives you 3 plants, or open city gives you 2 plants, but the main thing is that one place is an ocean, the other place is a city, and cards like large convoy, which it gives you plants, but you always want to use it for the animals. I did not include those either. Okay, so a few ground rules. The tier is relative only to plant cards. So game breaking is relative to plant cards. If this was relative to every card, that would be saved for like Earth Catapult and AI Central. But there will be some plant cards that, relative to other plant cards, are game breaking. Even though in a full ranking of all the project cards, they wouldn't be. Maybe some would be. Well, let's go over the categories. So, unusable, these are cards that I don't ever see me buying, basically, as it says. One very specific scenario are cards that I can see use, and maybe even very good in that one scenario, but it's one scenario. Few scenarios, same thing, like I've played these cards, rarely though. Usable are just like, it's gonna be like a middle tier. Often usable are plants that I will usually keep, even if they have requirements and are far away. Then always are plants you should always play, and game breaking is just the very few cards that completely can flip the game, or maybe you see in your starting hand, and even if you don't have plant corp, you still go for a plant strategy. We're alphabetical, and I'll also be organizing them inside the tiers, worst to best or best to worst. So let's begin. First off, adapted Lichen. So one very specific scenario, and that scenario is you need the plant tag to play NRA or insects, basically, because otherwise it's 12 for one plant production, and you're gonna see it's a theme with cards that give you a single plant that they're like, I don't think any of them goes beyond usable, maybe one it's unusable. They're generally not good. The jump from 1 to 2 plant production is quite significant, actually. And that's because one plant production by itself just gets your plants nuked. If you have more plant production, it's a little better. So adapted Lichen, I really have only played it for the plant tag, and it's generally like a desperate play. Okay, up next, Aerobraked, Ammonia, Asteroid. So it's also in this tier, a little worse in my opinion. I play this even more rarely, and the only time you play this if you can use the 3 things: the microbes, the heat, and the plants. So if you're rushing both parameters and you have something like Psychrophiles, or one of the microbe cards that raises the parameters, then it's actually decent. But it's very rare that you have this early and that you can even use titanium to pay it because it's quite expensive, or that you have cash, because when you rush the parameters you're generally not very cash rich. So yeah, very rare. I almost never use it. Algae. So yeah, I love this card. Algae is great. It's the best 2 plant production card there is, and that's because 5 oceans can come quick. 3 oceans can come really quick, especially in Tarsis map. 5 oceans can still come pretty quick. And there's also, if you're in Ventrix or have any of the cards that let you play with the parameters, then these can come even quicker. So that's a thing, that with oceans, you could play this 2nd or 3rd gen, and 2 plant production at that point is great. It also has the plant tag, and it gives you a plant. So algae, always. Okay, back to mediocrity. Archaebacteria. So I'm actually gonna rank this one tier higher than Adapted Lichen. And not because it's good. You'll notice like every card, like in these last 3 tiers, is a bad card. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I said, it's relative only to plant tags. But Archaebacteria, it's the cheapest early plant card, and I've used it for a few things. If you're eco-line, getting that third plant production can sometimes be necessary. It really helps you place one greenery every turn, because if you have 3 plant production, you usually place on a spot with 2 plants, so you have 5 at the beginning of the next gen, and so you just need another tab on a place with 2 plants, like an ocean or a, nuclear zone or whatever, and you have the 7, and you can place them before they nuke them. So I find that Ecoline really needs that third plant production. And the other thing is, this is cheap to fuel electrocatapult. So that's really the only 2 scenarios. The tag sucks. It doesn't have a plant tag. If it did, it might actually be more usable, because it's decently cheap. It's still 9 for 1 plant production. Like if you see Algae, you're paying 2 plant production for 10 for 13. So it's 6.5 per plant production. It's 9 per plant production. So it's a lot more expensive. It does come early. So total plants like Algae might give you 15 plants. This one can give you 10. So it's okay, but still not good enough. Arctic Algae. Okay, so Arctic Algae, you get that early. It's what the best plant card would be, the best here. If I was just ranking the best plant cards to see in your opening hand, Arctic Algae would be first. But the thing is, even though it has a temperature requirement, really it's the oceans that often make it be bad quite soon. Like I said with Algae, oceans often come down fast, and past 5 it's actually not that good, and that could be before half the game. So if you see this after Gen 4 or 5, it may not be usable, or it's usable but the effect is not that great. It'll give you at that point 9 plants for 12, which is fine, not great. So Arctic Algae just goes here in the 3rd tier, and apologies to all the people who love this card. I love it too, but it's only because it's not good mid-game. Okay, artificial photosynthesis. I'm gonna put that here. Now I am taking into consideration the flexibility. Now, you know what? I'm gonna, actually I don't like this card that much. It's like paying 12 for the plant production. It's bad. Science tag is good. Energy is actually the 12 for 2 energy is not terrible. It's 7.5 per energy. And like power plant is 7 per energy. So yeah, using this as energy, and you might be going for a more engine type game in that case. With a science tag is nice. With the plant, it's really not that great, but I am taking the flexibility into account. Even then, I'm gonna say one specific scenario, and that's for the energy. I rarely ever take the plant with this. So yeah, and worse than Adapted Lichen. Yeah, I the plant tag here, and the 3 less in price, I would say, make the difference. Okay, bushes. I quite like bushes. However, bushes has to go here. Now you'll see it's very similar to Algae, but -10 happens way after 5 oceans in most games. Other than that, it's 1 extra plant in the same price, but Algae will usually come 2 to 3 gens later, so it's 5 or 6 more plants. So 5 or 7 because of the so yeah, often usable. I will keep this. If I see this in the draft, I'll keep it. All the card series, I keep them, playing them later. But yeah, not as good as Algae, despite how similar it looks. Okay, Cloud Seeding. Now, most people hate this card. I don't hate it as much. The reason is simple. It is 2 plant production for 14 mega credits. It fucks your economy. That sucks. and you never use this if you have to hit your own hit. You hit someone else's hit. But the thing is, I don't find that to be hard because there's the 2 hit production bonuses on the temperature track. So yeah, someone's gonna have that hit, and there are many other cards that actually remove it. I think there's one that gives you 2 energy and removes it. But you're often gonna find a target for this, and it can come down pretty early. 3 oceans, that, I mean, could be first gen if someone has the hit, otherwise around third gen. But I do think 2 plant production is enough to put it above, even above. Yeah, I'm gonna put it above Archaebacteria. It's more efficient. But still, again, last 3 tiers, bad cards. And yeah, same with design microorganisms. I like it better than cloud seeding. Science tag can actually be good. Microbe tag sucks. But design microorganisms is very expensive. I would never play this on a plant rushing game because you just don't have the time. This is a whole generation of mega credits basically if you're rushing the game. But I have played this if you're going more for a hybrid strategy. You have some plant production from a prelude and maybe your Tharsis. This gives you 3 more. Tharsis has a little more cash. And you don't need to rush the game. You're actually going for a stronger ground game with cities, giving you a lot of points instead of ocean walking. And so in those scenarios, I do find that this card is fine. Tharsis really needs early plant production to make their cities more valuable before people bombard them with other tiles. So yeah, still bad card. Okay, Ecology Research is a very weird card in my opinion. And it's the first one in a middle tier usable. So I have actually played this very few times because I haven't played with Turmoil all that much, and then when I play with Turmoil, Colonies, I mean. And then when you play with Colonies, I rarely go for ground game, because I just start hitting Pluto or something 100 times a turn. So Ecology Research can actually, like, I'm mostly evaluating this without playing it, just on potential. First of all, this is an amazing set of tags. Even if they don't come as early, so that might not be that relevant, but like this gives like a full point on Decomposers, a point on Ecological Zone on Arclight, triggers Viral Enhancers 3 times, and then the better tag, the Science tag, and then you get 1 point, 1 animal, which should be a point, and 2 microbes, which can be like half a point. So if you're going like all in on the 3 greens type of cards, animals, microbe, and plant, this is actually great. Like it can easily net you 4 points, and then the colonies are expensive, and this is not the game's colonies, this is your colonies. So I doubt you'll get more than 2 plant production here. Unless it's a crazy long game and you're like switching towards plant production at the end. But yeah, if you get 2 plant production, that can easily be 1 greenery for the rest of the game. So yeah, between the tags and that, I'll call this usable. But I actually haven't used this card that much, so I could be wrong here. Okay, next up is Extreme Cold Fungus. Now, I like this card. I think it's better than Adapted Lichen. It does only work in one specific scenario, and that's if you have a target for the 2 microbes. It's not worth it on the plant. Like if Adapted Lichen, which has a plant tag and costs 4 less, is not worth it, then this is definitely not worth it, even though it gives you a plant on the turn it comes down. But if you have a target for the 2 microbes, it's usable. It's actually pretty good. And then when you're no longer using that target, maybe it's one of the like regolith eaters and the oxygen's maxed out, you can still produce plants for yourself. Or maybe if the microbe card it's gonna come down later, like you have ants or decomposers, then you can use the plant until it comes down. So It has some flexibility, but it's still like I use this for the micro resources, and then the plant is a nice to have basically for when you can't use the micro resources. Okay, farming. So farming is the let's call it usable. Now it comes in the latest. It's 4 degrees, so that's basically usually last gen or last 2 gens. So last 2 gens, this will get you 6 plants. One for last gen, one for the end of game, and there's 2 plants. So it's not even a full greenery. It does give you 2 points, so that's why it's usable. Like 19 for 2 points is not the end of the world, and this will, like, if you have 2 extra plants, this will be 1 more greenery, which is like 2 more points. 2 or 3, rarely 1, but that's enough for me for it to be usable. It's something that you only pick up to play in the last generation, basically, last 2 generations. Okay, grass. Grass is my favorite one production, or my second favorite one production card, and I'm gonna call it usable as well. And that's because it gives you 3 plants, and 3 plants can help you avoid getting nuked on the next generation. So the total plants it nets you is not that much. It comes down not too late, minus 16. That's maybe 4-5 generations, unless someone's rushing the heat. So the total plants it gets you, it's a little above 8 usually, 1 greenery. But the fact that it gives you 3 immediately makes it a lot better than this guy down here, or this guy lower here, and it can really like let you play extra greenery on the turn you bring it down. So usable. Greenhouses. Greenhouses, I'm gonna put it at the top of usable. Now, first of all, it's a steel dump. Sometimes you have extra steel at the end of the game, and there are very few cards at the end of the game with steel that are worth it, honestly. So greenhouses often feels free, and it usually gets you 1 or 2 greeneries. Like, it won't get you the 8 plants, but it gets you like the difference between what you have and the 8 plants. And if it's a crazy game where like 2 or 3 people went for cities, then it might get you the second greenery. And the other thing is it's a cheap plant tag, so if you need it for like NRA or insects, you can play this early and you can pay with steel, which is good, and you might only get 1 or 2 plants then, but then that's not bad, placing a greenery and being able to play insects on an NRA. So it has those 2 uses, either like end of game or like your last plant tag for usually NRA. If it's insects, it might be worth waiting unless it's really early. Okay, heather. Yeah, it's definitely better than this one. Obviously it's a plant tag and an extra plant with the requirement. I think that's minus 14. But still, 1 plant production usually not enough. And the 1 plant doesn't do what grass does. Like, it rarely, like, if you have 7 or 6 with Ecoline, yeah, it'll get you, like, then you play it. But grass just saves you from 4 or with Ecoline, or 5 with another corp. So yeah, 1 plant production rarely gonna land you above these 3. Okay, insects. Now that's going to go into game breaking. The reason is this can get you easily 3 to 6 plant production for 9 mega crates, which is very cheap. It takes a while for you to play it. It's 6%, but if you're actually rushing that, you have more plant production, you're going to be rushing that track anyway. There are scenarios where it can get you even 9 near the end of the game. Those are some crazy games, but usually 3 to 6 is what I hit it with, and that's 3-4 greeneries, which can be 12 victory points if you have cities. And yeah, kelp farming. So I'm actually gonna rank kelp farming below insects. Most people would rank it above, but I'm gonna rank it below insects. Okay, so first of all, why it's great is 5 oceans, just like algae. Sorry, 6 oceans, algae is 5. Yeah, it's 3 plant production, 2 plants, and then if you get this early, it actually pays for itself almost. So it's 20 credits to buy it and play it. So if you play it Gen 2 or 3, you'll get usually like 14, 16 back because of the production, so that's really nice. And it also has a VP. I mean, if you get this with like ecology experts, or if someone, you know, rushes the oceans, this is just the most game breaking card. It's just those scenarios are a little more rare, so I find insects to break their game a little more. And I think most people would disagree with me and would put kelp above insects, but yeah, I'm gonna put it right below. Lichen. Lichen is very similar to Archaebacteria, so it's better because it has the plant tag. It's a little worse because you need the heat to be at -24, which is usually very early anyway, so who cares. The plant production is the same, it costs 1 more. So the plant tag basically bumps it up above Archaebacteria. And that's the only reason to play it. This is not efficient plant production. It'll net you 1 greenery, even playing it early, all game, and you're sacrificing cash that you could use on something like titanium mine, which also costs 7. So yeah, not a good card. The tag does make it playable for insects and an array. Okay, this is a weird one that I didn't even realize I was including until later, and it's Lunar Export. And it goes in one very specific scenario, and that scenario is basically you're playing it for the 5 cash. The thing is, you can play it with titanium, but you're not often going to have titanium in a plant strategy. And 19 for 2 plant production, like if like design microorganisms, I thought it was bad for 16, and it has a science tag. And then everything else, bushes, algae, it's 10, and then we'll have some cheaper ones coming down. So this is too expensive and like not aligned with the tags that you need often with plants. So it's nice to have the flexibility, and I often play it, well, not even often, it's not super efficient. 5 for 22 is not great, but it's not as horrible as the 2 plant. So yeah, well, I'm gonna put it last here. Okay, magnetic field dome, and I'm gonna put magnetic field regenerator since they're very similar. I do play this in one specific scenario, and magnetic field generator can actually be great in that scenario. And that scenario is you have some extra energy because you were maybe using one of the bumpers and it's maxed out, and then you have steel. And so this is the maybe the best late game steel dump because it gives you 3 TR. The 2 plant production can give you an extra greenery because this is like last gen or last 2 gens, so it's 2 or 4 plant stops. But it's just like often it's free. If you're like maybe floating 8 steel, you're gonna have to play 4 for 3 victory points, and that's totally worth it. I don't put it in few scenarios. I put it in one specific scenario because you have to be floating steel and have 4 energy production that you can get rid of. But if you have that, this is great. And magnetic field dome is just like the baby version of that. It's only 2 energy, it's only 1 plant, and it's only 1 victory point, and it's only 5 mega credits. So all the same, it's just not as exciting. Like it probably won't get you an extra greenery. It's a victory point for 5 with free steel that you weren't doing anything with anyway. Okay, methane from Titan. I'm gonna say that's a little better than cloud seeding, and I think it does fall in the few scenarios category. The reason being, well, the scenarios are where we're really playing more Jovian than plants, but have plants as a backdrop. So first of all, if you have 2 Jovian multipliers, you play this card. It's 4 victory points. You can play it at the end if you want. 28 for 4 victory points. It's a little worse than Interstellar Colony Ship, but Interstellar Colony Ship is great. So yeah, you would play this with 2 multipliers. If you only have 1 multiplier, and then maybe play it a little earlier and get the plant production to give you an extra greenery. And then the heat, not often used. I would never play this early unless I'm like floating too much titanium and I don't know what to do with it, and I'm rarely going for titanium hidden plants. But yeah, because of the Jovian tag and the 2 VPs, I think it jumps above all this. Maybe I'm being a little harsh to extreme cold fungus, but it is only the scenario where you have the microbes, and there's a bigger chance that you're playing with Jovian than you're playing with microbes. So yeah, I'm gonna leave it like that. Okay, moss, and this will be the highest ranked single plant production card, and I'm actually gonna put it above farming. Now it's not gonna get you more points than farming for sure, but moss is so often the last tag I need for NRA or insects. It's so cheap, and it also feels electrocatapult. If you're not going for plants at all, and you have one plant that you can sacrifice to play it, this is the best card to use to like fuel electrocatapult. And so again, it's not a point card. You play it for the plant deck mostly. It does come down early, but it's so cheap that it's the best at like being the additional tag or the fuel for electrocatapult. And I find that I just play this often when I have that. And even if you're Ecoline, you can play this for your third plant production or your fourth or fifth plant production, and because it's so cheap and Ecoline is so cash poor, yeah, it's playable. So yeah, it's because it costs 4. Okay, NRA up here. So I want to say it's the weakest in the game breaking. There will be no more game breaking cards, but NRA is great if you manage to get the 3 plant tags, which is easy with preludes. Well, not easy, but easier with preludes. Yeah, it's fully worth sacrificing a whole generation on this. You will usually get 8 or more plant production with after you get the 4 plants. Never play these for 1 plant, obviously. Always have the 3 tags. And then you're also getting 3 TR with the temperature, and you're bumping the temperature, which is the best parameter to bump if you're playing for plants. And there's no restrictions. So every other card that's gonna be up here, it's gonna have restrictions pretty much. But this can come down Gen 2 if you manage to get the cash. Like with a prelude, you could even get the titanium. So this can be the earliest to come down. It is, however, more expensive, and it does cap at 4, so insects can go to 6, and it's much cheaper. That's why I have it above. But yeah, NRA is amazing. Okay, Nitrophilic Moss is another card that I feel is underrated. It's gonna go here. Not as good as bushes, obviously, but it will come down much earlier. The reason these 2 plants can sometimes be hard to you need to have 2 after you place greeneries basically to play this and take advantage of it. But the thing is that 3 oceans do make it come down way earlier than bushes and earlier than algae. So it'll give you more plants, even though you lose 2. You probably come down a few gens before, which makes up for it, and it's cheaper. The reason it's not higher is because it's actually, this can be hard. Losing 2 plants can be hard, and you might have to wait even if you can play it, because you only have 1 plant after placing your greenery, and you're not going to sacrifice your greenery to play it. But I actually think this card is quite underrated. Okay, snow algae. Let's, start the bottom tier. This is absolute garbage. I didn't play with this much because it's in the promo cards, and I didn't acquire those until later. But 1 plant, 1 hit is kind of worthless. It does have a plant tag, but it's like you would have to pay 15 just to feel NRA or insects. Like it's adapted Lichen is like a hard sacrifice, and it's 12, but just 15 is just too much. And then there's a requirement of 2 oceans, so I don't know what they were thinking. I think this card is horrible. And speaking of horrible, Salt Factory. I mean, at least this one has a VP. and you can pay it with steel. Not sure which one I like better, but you have to pay for, like, this is crazy expensive. Just add 7 for the power, so this is 16 for a plant production and a victory point. But do you want a victory point early? You don't want to spend extra money on a victory point early. You don't even want to play this for a builder. This is another horrible card. I guess if you're floating a bunch of steel and energy, it's good, but then that would apply to an end of game scenario because you're not floating steel early. So like if you compare it to magnetic field dome, I guess, yeah, okay, so I'm gonna actually say it's closer to magnetic field dome and put it there. So yeah, I mean, it's a little more expensive, but we're assuming you're floating steel and have extra energy, and this victory point is that. Yeah, okay, let's put it there then. It's the only scenario where I can see it though, and it's generally horrible. Trees used to be my favorite, because I used to rush the temperature faster than the oceans in my group, but as you play more you realize that rarely happens in reality. Still and always keep 3 plant production and a victory point is a lot. It'll get you easily a greenery, like -4 usually can be Gen 7, Gen 6 or 7. Even though that's the point where people start throwing asteroids to get the extra ocean. So in those cases it might actually be like last generation or the generation before last, and it will still probably net you an extra greenery, or 7 plants at least. You'll produce 3 twice and get 1, and then a victory point. But if it comes a little earlier than that, if someone's rushing the heat, then it's amazing. But yeah, even though it's 3, it's just not in the same level as Kelp Farming or NRA or insects. Tundra Farming. Okay, so Tundra Farming is actually quite similar to farming, but I like it a little less. And the reason is, like, really, you play these 2 cards more for the 2 points than the plant production. Because like I said, with farming comes down at +4, so it's gonna produce 6 plant stops. Tundra is -6, but it produces even less because it only produces 1, and the income, it's never gonna pay back for itself. But it does give you 2 points. It can give you 3 or 4 plants. Farming is 4 or 6. So yeah, it's probably gonna be more points than grass. But yeah, actually, I'm gonna throw it behind grass because I love that grass can save your plants from an asteroid or place your greenery. And grass can actually come much earlier. Even work as an extra attack for insects or NRA. Tundra Farming is rarely gonna do that, and it's more expensive, so yeah. But it is usable. The 2 VPs make it usable. Okay, Urban Decomposers. Now, Urban Decomposers... I mean, it's very similar to Archaebacteria, but it's way worse. So, throw it there. I mean, it does give you 2 extra micro attacks, but those are rarely usable early. I mean, only sidecore files would be worth it earlier. And then you need a colony and a city, which is not that common to have 1 of each. In that very specific scenario where you have sidecore files, there's a colony and a city and a plant. That even is you know what, I'm gonna throw it down there. Better than a snow algae because it's cheaper. But I'm gonna say this scenario is basically impossible, and even then, all it gets you is a plant production. Oh, Venus soils. Yeah, definitely the last. I hate this card. I love that the image is just a guy just holding a pile of shit because it's a pile of shit. So this is never usable. It's 20, so I mean, you can play it late and it gets you a point, but then the plant production is worthless, and the microbes will get you half a point. So 1.5 points for 20 is a horrible ratio. Or you can play it early, plant production, use the microbes, it'll still get you a point, but 20 early for a point is even more awful, so, and the one plant production is not going to do anything, and the Venus tag, unless you're Aphrodite, which is also a pile of shit, the Venus tag and the plant tag have nothing to do with each other. So, it's just Aphrodite's project, the two piles of shit. Okay. Something more positive, viral enhancers, and I'm actually gonna rank these high. Now, the thing is, viral enhancers, the best thing about viral enhancers is that every animal comes with an extra point. So viral enhancers probably gets you at least one more point, maybe two. With ecological zone, an extra one. But if you play this early, you'll be surprised how many plants this gets you. And if you play something like Advanced Ecosystems, it's 3 plants. And so Viral Enhancers is just an amazing card. Not on the same level as this tree. Is it above trees? I'm gonna say it's more situational. It's above trees if you play the animals, which you often will. But maybe just one, maybe if you play 2 or 3, it's above trees for sure. Otherwise, not really, but it'll get you easily a greenery, 8 plants, totally possible. And then finally worms. Let's finish on a slightly underwhelming note, but I rate this a little higher than most people. And the thing is, for worms to be worth it, you only need 3 other microbe tags so that you get the 2 plant production. This card could really have been just 1 microbe tag, and it would have been still worse than insects, because there's not that many playable microbe tags, but a pretty decent card. But with 2, it's just you can't get only 1 production from this. It's not worth it, not efficient. 2 is decent. It would be the same price as Nitrophilic Moss for 2 plant production. And the thing is that the 3 microbe tags are not super rare. Early in the game, there's psychrophiles and viral enhancers. Like I said, those 2 can come down. I mean, psychrophiles is great early. Viral enhancers is great early. So if you play 1 more, you get the production. And that could be something like Decomposers, which is pretty good, or Extreme Fault Fungus with another card would be 2 tags. And so I find that I play these maybe more often than I would hope for the 2 plant production. And if you get 3, then it's pretty good. That's very nice, 3 plant production for 8. But yeah, otherwise not that. Usually you can't get that. It's very specific. Alright, I hope you enjoyed the tier list. Please leave your comments with your thoughts. I love debating about this, so let's talk about how kelp farming could be better than insects, or NRA could be better than both. And yeah, I'm gonna leave a link to the Tiermaker so that everyone can do it. I had to create this one, and I'll be creating other ones for other types of cards in Terraforming Mars. And yeah, please like, share, subscribe, all the things YouTubers say. I'll see you next time. Bye.